We're going to talk about Arsenal, our weekly temperature check on if they're still title contenders. I think the quick answer on that one is yes, right?
Yeah.
But I think with it being January, we want to talk about Arsenal and how they can strengthen, because they are looking at a few areas at the moment. And in terms of wanting to win a title, which is, I think, certainly what's in their mind right now, you know what that's like. And we're going to talk about some of the players that are important to Arsenal. And the one that everyone is constantly talking about is Mykhailo Mudryk, who's, some have said, is better than Grealish. Some have said Grealish on an energy drink, let's say. You said
Carabao Grealish is what we're calling him.
Or other drinks are available. Let's start with him, because in terms of areas to strengthen, I think there's a few. But in that left wing position, let's say, or number 10 position, or wide forward, do you think Arsenal actually need that kind of depth if they want to win the title this year?
It never really harms to have more quality players in your squad, full stop, really, does it? Obviously,
can you have too many though? That's an interesting point. Look at Chelsea.
I don't think
they've got a lot of players, but they're all a little bit unhappy.
They're not at that point yet, though, are they? I don't think, personally. To be honest, as well, there's the element of the injection of competition and just the momentum and the freshness and the ideas that a player like him brings to the squad. It immediately challenges his teammates to step up and do it. And to be honest, I think it's weird that it's expensive, but I think the idea is sensible behind it at very least, because I do think you need it. And you want the drop off between your players that you're rotating around to be as small as possible, if not even better. And he looks like a really good player. It's a lot of money, but I'm casting envious glances over his direction as well, even as a City fan, because it's the pace and the directness that he's got to his game, and he looks like a match winner. And like when it's getting tougher at the end of the season, and when that pressure ramps up that everyone keeps talking about, which does happen, it is a thing, as we felt it as City and Liverpool fans. A player of that explosiveness and that fearlessness, it could be crucial. So, it's a lot of money that we're talking about, but if Arsenal end up doing it, win the league, no one's going to question it.
Do you think it's something they absolutely need? Because I think starting 11 feels good, especially when they're in good form. My question around Arsenal is always, as it progresses, is as the sort of volume of pressure gets dialed up, if they can kind of cope with that. And to cope with that, I guess you need answers. And so is that why they need someone like Mudryk, because he is such a creative spark? And something different.
I don't know whether a 22-year-old who's played his entire career at Shakhtar is going to be the answer for Arsenal when the pressure cranks up. I actually think they're buying him because they really believe that in the long term he's going to be a phenomenal player. Because when you pay 85 million or however much they pay, it's going to be a lot of money.
He's only just turned 22, isn't he? Had his birthday the other day.
You're buying a kid who hasn't got a lot of international experience, hasn't got much experience basically anywhere outside of Ukraine. And I think they're hoping they ship him in and immediately he hits the ground running. But I don't know if that is an absolute requirement in this transfer window right now. If you've got 85 million to spend, I think you need to spend it on players who can play at the international stage. We're going to talk about a name in a second, who might be a cheaper option. Because if you pay 85 million for Mudryk, and you know what the pressure's like in the Premier League, we're talking about pressure, it could work the other way. If he comes in, doesn't score for 10 games, all of a sudden you just wasted 85 million and now you've got more pressure on you.
Well, and Dario Serna, who's a legend at Shakhtar Donetsk, he's talking about being in the region of 100 million. He wants that because he's seen what's happened with Anthony. And this is the world we live in, isn't it? Now, when certain, it started off obviously with Neymar, and then when these sort of new watermarks get created, then everyone wants a little piece of that. And you're saying 85 million. I think that's if we sort of, the negotiations carry on, it gets that little bit later down the line, and everyone actually wants to get the deal to be done. But it's a dangerous thing to bring someone, although that he's been very impressive in the Champions League this season, to come in at the sharp end of the season and expect him to have an impact. That doesn't always work when it comes to those January signings, does it?
No, you're right. It doesn't. It's too much pressure for one person to carry the expectation on. I guess the counter to it would be that the expectation wouldn't be on him. I don't think it would be. Arsenal are already doing well, and you would hope.
Because he wouldn't start, would he? He wouldn't start.
Yeah, he's
Martinelli, if he's playing on the left, Martinelli starts. If they're playing Man City, which they've got to do twice. Right. So...
But that's where I'm going. I understand strength and depth, and maybe this is me speaking as a Liverpool fan who we haven't had that luxury. Yeah. So
it does work, by the way. It helps.
You also need a manager who's happy to tinker and can move players around. But I think they're also at a slightly different stage. You've then got a young Martinelli, a young Saka, a young Mudryk, and all of them need to play. Yeah. If they're not playing week in, week out, they're not going to develop. They're not going to improve that much. And then on top of that, I think it is just a gamble, because I know you're saying the pressure's not on them right now, but if in 2 months' time...
Not on him individually, I would say. Like, because he's come in, I think people, even with the prize, would still be, at least the Arsenal fans would be like, well, it's his first, 6 months, and he is still adapting
I just
to the
think
league.
the Premier League is so rough on new signings.
It's a tough league.
It's a balance as well between quality and sort of expense.
Yeah.
If he's going to come in and he's going to cost 85 million... everyone's been laughing at Pepe, and when he came in, oh wow, he looks exciting, but he's come from a league where it's not at that Premier League level, and he wasn't capable despite scoring the odd nice goal. That's the danger with someone like Mudryk, who I do think looks brilliant, but it is a huge risk. And is he maybe not the priority? Because we've spoken on this show a couple of weeks ago about Eddie Nketiah and if he was capable of doing it. I actually still think you've come towards my thinking, and I've come towards your thinking a little bit, because I think the goals have been there, 0-0 in the Newcastle game. He's very linear for me. He doesn't sort of, doesn't move about like Gabriel Jesus does. So really, is the priority a striker? And if it is a striker, where should Arsenal be looking?
Well, I think just on Eddie Nketiah, I completely agree. I think the way Arsenal play, I have come more towards you because he's getting results. But when you watch the game against Newcastle, you could see that they don't play with a focal point. They don't just want to fire it into a centre forward. Yeah. And that's where I sort of come to someone like Marcus Thuram, who's available. He's on the market. Chelsea have been linked, apparently for 15 million.
I can't believe he's not been snapped up when he's this.
Bargain,
if it's true that he could be 10, 15 million.
The thing is, I think with Marcus Thuram, from what I hear from Bundesliga fans, a lot of them say when it comes around to the contract time, he suddenly turns it on. But apart from that, for the most part, around the year, he's just not quite at it, and his attitude's been questioned a few times. But this season, he's got 10 goals in 15 games, and I think Arsenal only need 4 or 5 goals from someone, whoever it is, because Gabriel Jesus is going to be back, and then you have the player
it's low
on the
risk
bench.
as well, isn't it, for that money? It's low risk. So
you'll always get your money back because you'll have a contract, and you go, all right, we bought you for 15, didn't work after a year, let's ship you off. But the thing with Arteta and Arsenal is, I feel like they're in a phase similar to what Liverpool were in, where every signing worked, and the last thing you want is to bring someone in and it doesn't work and momentum goes.
Well, though, you could be for that price, though, in the way that it didn't really affect you signing Minamino. It was roughly a similar price, and it didn't really stem, Liverpool's momentum at the time. And it could be that they go for it that way. It might end up better than that, or it could be that he ends up a bargain like the way that Akanji's been a bargain for City for 14 million over a year left in his contract. So Thuram is
it's
not
so
bad.
difficult, though, because I think Marcus Thuram feels like such a good sort of safe bet in the fact that the problem for Arsenal, and so teams in, say, the Championship, and QPR did it one year, where you got to sort of January and you're like, we've got a chance here, but we know we need this one player. And we went and did it, and it worked. We brought in Wayne Routledge, and it got us over the line. But for Arsenal, it's such a big change, because if you go and get Victor Osimhen, who's a great name, who would be obviously amazing for Arsenal, but you're not totally certain of it working, or you're getting rushed into it working, it could be devastating, because the amount of money is 140 million if it's Victor Osimhen, despite, he's obviously had a great record, he's a great player. You just never know how much money these guys have got. And with Arsenal, do you think it's worth going and getting the surefire bet, even if it's going to cost you over 100 million in terms of Victor Osimhen, and using that Mudryk money there?
When you put it that way, using the Mudryk money, I'm like, yes.
Because if you are spending 85 million on that, and you've got Martinelli there...
But then, we're saying 85 million to 140. That's quite a lot of money.
Yeah, that's 2 players, isn't it?
Yeah. That's like me asking you to lend me like 500 quid, and you saying I've got 100 quid. It's quite far apart. But I think with Victor Osimhen, he's going to hit the ground running. But my concern would be, you've got Gabriel Jesus, and he's going to be back, and Arsenal won't play with 2 up front. And if you don't play with 2 up front, either one of them is sitting on the bench, or a certain someone is going to have to go play right wing again. And I don't think you don't need a right wing because you've got Saka there.
It doesn't seem like a January signing either, Seaman. For that amount of money, you don't spend that amount of money. Where Arsenal are right now, and they're trying to establish themselves with this really settled, young, vibrant team. And it feels like too much of a distraction, that transfer, potentially, because it's stupid money. It'd be a Premier League record fee immediately. I don't really feel like Arsenal need that on their shoulders either, because that immediately elevates them as a club. They have to win stuff.
But the bottom line is, if you want to win a title, you have to have 2 sets of 11 that could be in the top 4. Yeah, is that not true? And is that just something that they'll have to address that situation at some point if they want to get where they want to be?
I think it's 270 million pound players are better than for them, than 140 right now. That's where I would be at if I was Arsenal, because they've done it really well.
If you need recently. 2 11s, it depends.
You haven't got 2 11s, by the way. This is a bit of a myth. We haven't. Right now, we haven't. We've got we've got about about 20 players, 19 players. So we are lacking, 1 or 2 players. That's why people are playing twice a week at the moment. So
Arsenal are 3 or 4 short. Like, they're definitely 3 or 4 short. When they played Newcastle, they had Fabio Vieira on the bench, actually, and he didn't bring him on, which tells you maybe he isn't completely convinced by him yet. Maybe he doesn't want to put pressure on him. But then the rest of his bench was players he didn't want to bring on. They were in a situation where they desperately needed a goal and he didn't have anyone to bring on. So I think they probably could do with 2 or 3 more players. But clearly they want to go for one. And if the one is Mudryk, then could look to them.
Do you think they'll regret Mudryk if they get him and spend 85 million on him? Final questions here.
He could hit the ground running. It's impossible to say.
Yeah.
But
do you think the priority needs to be a striker or a midfield deputy for Partey who's going to be a lot cheaper than everyone we've spoken about today, apart from Marcus Thuram?
I think go get Marcus Thuram. But it's a free hit. If it goes wrong, it goes wrong.
It's low risk, isn't it?
Yeah. Mudryk is like, I just think in a couple of months' time when the pressure's on and you need goals, and in those games Mudryk might have played 3 or 4, he hasn't quite settled. He's gonna have to go. Brother, I'm sorry, but you have to come on. And if he doesn't come on and deliver for a couple of games, they're going to go, oh, it's 85 million down the drain. We needed you for the title. Because they're buying him to win the title. They're not buying him because they want him to be amazing next season or the season after. Now is the time to get someone who can hit the ground running.
But it's not still a successful season if they finish second. Arsenal, again, when they spent 85 million, even then, because I don't mean to be disrespectful, but no one expected Arsenal to win the league this year. So, falling short of the last hurdle was still an incredible season for Arsenal, in my personal opinion. I don't think it's patronising. I think it's fair.
No, it felt patronising, I'll be honest.
I don't think it is. I think it's done brilliantly.
So it's getting tense, guys. Let us know. What's the priority? How much would you spend? And do you really want Mudryk? Let us know in the comments down below.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.